Happy Self-Love Saturday. Whoop, whoop. So today's video is in collaboration with another YouTuber named Courtney Daniella. She is a storyteller, an entrepreneur, a brand strategist out of the UK. She has a hair company called CDB London Hair, and I just discovered her. I saw a post that she did all about overthinking and just being a creative and some of the pressures that you feel naturally, especially in this time. And so I reached out to her and I was like, let's talk about it.
Do you remember there was a time when like the message of like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, like that was
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, like who
Yeah.
needs sleep? And then one
Everywhere.
day, I swear to God, that marketing just went down the drain, and people were like, no, you actually need to sleep. You need to sleep to like
Yeah.
right. You need to sleep to be productive. That's how I felt at the beginning of the pandemic. Like everybody stay inside scare was,
Right.
it felt like the push was you should be working like
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And then now that we're kind of like 2 months in, almost 3 months in, now only you're kind of seeing people be like, actually, if you
It
don't
doesn't work.
you don't have
Yeah.
to do anything at all. Like I had a real adjustment period because
Mm-hmm.
at first I didn't feel like doing anything. And then eventually I kind of
Wow.
got it together. And only now am I feeling more motivated. It's like I'm a filmmaker, and like at first, when this first started, there was so many like make a 1 minute short film challenge, make a model, do
Wow.
this, make like the first week out. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you how
Are you not tired?
like you're like a business owner and all of that kind of stuff. Did you
Yeah.
feel that way when it first hit? The pressure to be productive?
I think my experience with this whole lockdown thing has been a bit different because in the beginning, I actually wasn't well. I
Mm,
don't think I had COVID-19, but I was having some problems with my blood pressure.
right.
So it's never happened to me before, but it meant I had to stay home for 2 weeks. So this was before like the UK government had announced an official lockdown.
Proper lockdown.
Yeah, so I was just in my house watching everyone kind of go about, but obviously this was mid-March, so
Yeah.
everyone knew about coronavirus, we knew about COVID-19, and I had spent the beginning of the year kind of seeing it, observing it in China because most of my suppliers are Chinese, so you kind
Yeah.
of have to keep up with that news. So to be honest, I felt a major hit of this coronavirus in February before everyone was even panicking. Because for me, like my warehouses were like, well, we're not having any staff in the warehouse,
Yeah.
no delivery people are shipping. So for me, it's like, rah, where's my stock gonna come from? What am I gonna do?
Wow.
March, amazingly, I moved. I had a hair studio and I moved to a bigger studio,
Yeah.
and then I got sick. So it was just like, okay, I can't go to work. And so I think what that period of that 2 weeks kind of taught me was you have to slow down. Like I think I was pushing myself way too far. I was getting very exhausted, just trying to be, like you said, like overproductive. And this was before even like the pressures of social media and everyone saying, develop 10 new talents.
Yeah.
And so I was at home and I just learned to slow down. And then after I got better, I think I was at work for like a day. And
Yeah.
then they were like, well, lockdown. And I'm just like,
Wow.
I'm gonna be back at home again. Exactly like you said, you should start a business. It's the perfect time. And I think for me, as somebody who was self-employed and is used to doing a lot of work at home, working on my own time, I understood it. But I think for a lot of people who aren't used to that, who would be facing the realities of people being sick, like I was sick, my mum got sick, it
Yeah.
was really realizing that people have real issues that they also have to deal with during this time. You're scared. You're just generally, there's an anxiety that
Oh,
everyone has. I
100%.
remember I was going to work and a guy stood a bit too close. Like this was not social distancing. And I was just looking at him like, sir, I know you are aware there is a global pandemic. You can't tell me you don't know. Take 3 steps back.
Everybody knows.
It's kind of like, okay, as much as everyone's shouting, be productive, I think this was a great opportunity for a lot of people to rest. And yes, there may be anxiety surrounding where money is going to come from and stuff like that. But I think you can't build things out of panic and
Yeah.
feel like you can sustain them. And I think a lot of people were trying to exercise and do all these things, and it's out of panic, out of fear of trying to be like everyone else. And before you realize it, you get to like 2-3 weeks and it's like, actually, I don't feel motivated to do any of this.
I do think like as content creators, you are used to being at home and you are used
Yes.
to having to kind of create and work for yourself. But I did feel that panic, I guess, because at first everybody was like, this is the time to utilize your audience. This is the time to be
Yes.
growing. This is the time to be,
Yeah.
and you kind of lose sight of like, what kind of content do I actually make?
This is it. This is it. And I think even for me, like before this whole lockdown period, I was very like inconsistent with content creation because I was focusing on my business. But now it's like, oh, I had so much more time.
Yeah.
Let me create some stuff. But I think one of the first things I had to kind of slow down and really think about is, what content are you making? Because everyone's saying, you know, everyone's watching content more than ever, and it's true. But people still want valuable content. They're not just trying to consume junk. So for me, it was like, don't just put something, you know, half-hearted together and put it out and call it content that you're not really proud of. But also, it's a good time to get to know your community before you start trying to make money off of them. And I think but with this whole like, oh, you should have 1,000 different side hustles, and content creation is a great side hustle. It's like, no, you're actually dealing with a community of people, and you have to get to know them before you just start, you know, buy this, buy that, do this.
It's kind of like you have to wait to see like, what is my community wanting to spend on time on? What are they interested in at this time? What is inspiring them at this time? Before all of this, my focus was literally on my production company and growing my business. Like, how long would you say that you've been making videos or making content in general, making beauty content?
4 years.
Okay. So it's some time, right? And people don't realize that it has a lot of ups and downs in terms of motivation. Like
100%.
Whenever you're taking a break is because you genuinely like, I need a break.
You need it. You need it.
It's like, that's the phase that I was in. And this is probably the first time in a long time that I've like felt good about my audience and my content. How has your process been in terms of getting back into your content?
It's been interesting because I think, similar to what you just said, you're kind of trying to find that balance of, what does my audience want to see, but what do I actually want to create? And when I first started, I was 18, and I was just thinking like, okay, I know a lot of people like beauty content, and beauty content grows and you make money off of beauty content. Everyone is telling me, go down that, you know, dark skin makeup, be that person. And I loved makeup. Don't get me wrong, I loved makeup. I loved hair. I have a hair company. Like it was something, a huge part of me. But I also wanted to just make relatable chit chat, sit down, talk, in-depth kind of videos. And when I used to post them, I used to get really anxious about people aren't going to watch my sit down videos. And to my absolute surprise, it was my beauty content that wasn't getting any views.
Wow.
And I was just like, well, okay, great. We're all on the same page. This is fantastic. But then you then get the questions of, but then how do I integrate something that's sponsorable, I guess, if that's a word.
Yeah, and how do you make the sponsored content genuine within the...
Exactly, within the authenticity of all the other content. And so I think for me, my whole struggle as a content creator has been finding that balance of, okay, I want to integrate beauty and hair. And I think I've done it. What's been, I think, beautiful is being able to communicate with my audience and my community and actually feel as though, wow, these people actually want to contribute to what I create. And I always want to create something that is of value for them. When you take time to engage with your audience as much as you just create for them, you kind of find that balance a lot quicker. And a lot easier. But I also think it's important for creators to know that you'll find your tribe. Like if you put out the content, people who want it will find you.
I'm a big advocate for like the power of the niche audience.
Yes.
Numbers are not as important as engagement.
100%.
Like I mean, numbers is in like literally views and things like that, right? Followers, quote unquote. But like if your engagement is super high, able to go further than the person who has 1 million plus, but their engagement is not as good as the person who has 1,000 followers. Right.
I totally agree with what you say. Like I think niche audiences are really the way forward. I think when you find your audience and you know, position yourself as an expert in a specific industry, people pay you regardless of how many people you bring, because they know they can trust you. And at the end of the day, you make money based off of trust. And so for me, I think where it kind of becomes hard is a lot of people are surface level. When they come to your page and they see the number of followers that you have, they seem a bit more intrigued. in what it is that you do. And that's a really sad thing, because you have amazing creators who are
Yeah.
just not getting the right audience.
There's this weird balance that you have to really figure out, because there's making the content, putting it out, but then there's also like actually putting it in our faces,
Pushing it out. And that's what a lot of content creators, they forget. It's like, it's great, we like, the content is art, we love it, it's phenomenal. You don't know how to get things in people's faces, especially if you're in a niche. And I think that's where things get a bit difficult, because it's, if you're sharing parts of your life, people aren't necessarily looking for it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? That they find it, they come across it, you know, it's in your recommended, it's in your suggestions, or someone shared it, the link. So if we don't push for our content to be seen, it doesn't get seen.
I kept seeing memes that were like, this is the way you can support a small business, is like, like it, share it. Like, it's something as simple as that. And people don't realize that it's not always a money-making thing. Sometimes it's just like, just show your love by telling other people about this person.
Especially if you think it's good. I even think about it with myself sometimes, and I have to catch myself when I do it, but like, I'll binge watch somebody's YouTube channel and be like, have I even subscribed? And it's those small things of just support, you know, if you're appreciating the content.
Definitely. Subscribing is like, I think people think that YouTubers say it at the end of their videos just for saying it. I please.
Please, I need you to. I think as a creator, you can get in your head as to, oh my gosh, if I put this out there, will anyone even like it? You know, if I do this, how do I go about making it the most perfect thing when I first launch it? And when you realize that actually you've just got to start with what you've got, do your best with it, but at some point you just have to get it out. You know, I've had certain things where I'm like, I'm just perfecting it, and it's been like 2, 3, 4 months, and it's like, if you would just put it out, I'm sure nobody would have noticed that the lighting wasn't good, or that this wasn't good, you know. And so we hold ourselves back because we're constantly overthinking and aiming for this illusion of perfectionism, rather than, is this value that people actually need? And I think when we look at the ideas that we have, it's usually because we've never seen it somewhere before, or we just think people will enjoy it, or we ourselves just want to create it. But then we kind of dismiss all of that with, but are people going to watch it? And it's like, well, if you're passionate about it, then you'll be able to push it in people's faces. You'll be able to, you know, put it out there with an enthusiasm, which convinces people to watch it and then like it. With all of that, you can get so wrapped up in your head that you forget that you're a creator.
And especially in a time like this, when you want to create or you want to keep yourself busy, I can't tell if it's important or not to think about your brand when putting out your content. Have you been thinking like that?
So I am naturally inclined to think about brands anyway, because I work with brands, like I help brands grow. That's kind of been the work that I've done in the past.
Amazing.
So as someone who does like branding consultancy and bits and bobs here and there, I oftentimes speak to people and they're like, I just want to build a brand. I just want to build a brand. And it's like, okay, that's fantastic. You know, we all want to build a brand. But the first question you need to ask yourself is, what's my values? And I think you don't need an official mission statement. You don't need to make up a document. But I think you yourself need to know, through everything that I do, what am I trying to spread? You know, is it encouragement? Is it vulnerability? It doesn't just have to be one thing. But I think when your community sees that you are consistent in that thread of, I'm always making sure everything that I create surrounds this common value, then they know whether they want to rock with you or not. You know, they know whether, okay, if, for example, myself, my brand is hugely around transparency. The other day I posted about how I'm doing my nails at home, and I was very open about the struggle of just wanting and needing to do my nails at home. And I think my audience understands that because they can relate to it. You know, and so it's not just, even with branded stuff and sponsored content, you always have your values mixed in that. That's what is your brand. It's that consistency, it's that reliability. Fonts and music and colors and stuff, that's all great. It's all aesthetic, but at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, what's my value? And I think a lot of people start creating, like we've been discussing, I would just want to make money. or I just want to build a following, and they have no values.
Yeah, they're just not thinking about the heart,
the
of
message,
what they're
the
doing.
heart, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no like overarching message. There's no heart of what they're doing, and so that's how you easily get discouraged from creating.
Yes.
Because you don't actually have something that's underpinning you. You know, in
Yeah.
up days and down days, I know for myself, I just want people to know that they're not alone in what they're going through. There's also someone who's either been through it, going through it, will go through it.
Yeah.
And so if I can be that to my community, that's amazing, which means even when I'm unmotivated, I can create a post that says, I'm feeling really unmotivated.
Yes.
And it gets really good engagement because that's the brand.
I like to make my audience feel like they can do it. Like,
good.
Big for me is kind of like, I guess because I've always been encouraged. Like, I've always had people around me who have encouraged me. And so naturally, I think, you know, each one teach one. It's like, well,
yeah,
I've been encouraged, so you should be encouraged. And it's really important for people to be transparent around the idea of content creators and what they do and how they do it and why they do it. If you had one piece of advice for anybody right now that was thinking about making content or is making content but is overthinking it or stressed out about it or worried, what would you, or even a small business owner for sure, what would your thought process be, or your advice or your words of wisdom be for them right now?
I think my philosophy and life, I think mainly because of my faith as well, is always serve other people.
Yeah.
So I think in this time, be very community minded, and whether that be the community you've built as your audience or your customer base, think about how you can best make things easier for them. I think oftentimes we can look at it in very strategic ways and very, you know, this is how I can make more money, and that's always great. But always think the first thought should always be, how does this serve people? And I think people always go to things that provide solutions, make them feel as though, you know, this person really cares about me. Also, I can relate, or I just trust this person. Always be community minded.
Where can everybody find you? Where can they find your hair? Where can they find your girl chat? Where can they find everything?
Yay. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Courtney Daniella. Courtney with a C, and on YouTube the exact same thing, Courtney Daniella, and on Twitter, Courtney Daniella. Just search the name, you'll find me. But yeah, and my hair company is called CDB London.
Yay! I love